Hello, and welcome to another week of the Storied Arcs podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And today, we are concluding the Manhattan projects for now. That's totally up to you, Jonathan Hickman. I know you're listening. You can circle back to this series anytime you want, and we will pick it right back up and keep reading. But this is all we have for now. This is Volume 6, The Sun Beyond the Stars. And it's technically, issues 1 through 4 is one of those.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it was one of the very modern, lame attempts to pick up new readers. I think it was indicating kind of the anthology direction of this is a 4-issue miniseries in this universe.
And we talked about that last week when you read that letter from Hickman, which I believe was written in good faith at the time. This idea that because they announced this book at the end of 25, at the end of the quote unquote last issue, they said, and they explained that the goal at this point was to break the story apart in this way and change the format of the comic. And the idea was that this book, The Sun Beyond the Stars, was going to be the first entry in that. And I believe in that letter, he even said it was more focused runs, but bigger issues. Because I want to say these 4 issues are, they're 30, 32 pages, something like that each. So you're getting a little extra. I guess you're coming out to, 22.
I mean, it's
you're getting a little.
You're getting a little pages more on the front end of each issue, weirdly, because I would be turning the page into the 7th or 8th page of the book, and it's just now the title card. It's just interesting that it wasn't just tacked onto the back. It was a very specific format he was working with script wise.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying this is just tacked on the back. I'm saying in terms of this is 4 issues, but relative to
it's the same
other
length
volumes,
as other trades.
It's a total page count about the same here. But yeah, this was supposed to be the idea of we're just going to follow each of our disparate kind of groups because everyone had split up at the end of the volume, at the end of volume 5, as a recap, we had, we mentioned we had Feynman and the 2 Einsteins. They were exploring the multiverse. You had Groves and LBJ and the other general. They were the only ones left in Los Alamos. As part of the Manhattan Project, all the scientists were gone. It was military only. You had Harry Dalian, who had gone out into the desert to become a nuclear god, nuclear deity. You had the apparent rise of the AI FDR.
Yep.
That was an open thread. And then we have this story here, which was Yuri Gagarin and going out there with Werner von Braun to go find Laika, because last we had seen her, she had been captured by some scientifically or knowledge-oriented race and had gotten, transmogrified into an anthropomorphic dog. And that was the last we saw of her. And so we're picking up this story here. And I don't know about you, Mike, but for me, knowing that this is the only one of those stories we got, I can't help but be a little disappointed because this story of the ones I listed out, this one was probably the one I would have been least interested in personally.
I'm glad you said that because I had the same note, except that I did. I also noted but this was clearly where the momentum was leading at the end of. That doesn't mean I have to be happy about the decision, but the writing was on the wall that he's pretty interested in following this out to space.
I agree. This was the only, I think, defined open question. Does that make sense? The other ones were just setting up for, and they have other stories to go to. We don't know all the other stories we listed. We don't know what paths they're going to go down. This one had direction because Von Braun and Garen, they were on a mission. They were going after to find Laika. We don't know what's going to happen after that, but that was they had a very clear initial direction. That's where they were left off. And so it did make sense that this is the one they would jump into first. But again, the fact that it's the only one we did get, I kind of look back at the end of volume 5 and just think a lot of stories that I would have loved to have gotten to if we'd gotten this exact same format. If they could have stuck with this and kept it going, and we just got these 4 issue miniseries. I wonder part of it too. You know, I'm looking up this series specifically, and it's a little weird if you search on something like League of Comic Geeks or something like that. The single issues are listed, they're categorized under the Manhattan Project's The Sun Beyond the Stars. You get the 4 issues that's there, but there isn't a trade paperback for it because this trade, which is labeled as volume 6 of just the regular Manhattan Projects, that's listed over under the main series, the Manhattan Projects. So it can get a little confusing looking it up here. But when I see the publication dates on these 4 issues, issue 1 comes out in March 2015. Issue 2 comes out in July, issue 3 in September, issue 4 in February. Yeah, so you're talking like a full year for 4 books for 30 issues.
No offense, but yeah, for this.
For 4 issues, even 30 pages, that's a lot. I mean, again, you don't want to compare people like that, but in like Brubaker and Phillips put out 5 OGNs in the matter of like 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that. You know,
the first 3 came out within continuum, like right? 16 on one side of the continuum is that Brubaker Phillips, and Phillips is like, Brubaker can't feed me fast enough, and Brubaker's a pretty fast writer. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have
Hickman and Pitarra,
Hickman and Pitarra, Staples Vaughn, and you've also got I'm blanking on the names of whoever is still on Hush 2. It's like you finished the second trade paperback of the following Batman run, and they're still finishing up the prior one.
This is what I think we were saying last week. We started hinting at this would have been if this book had come out now, aka about 10 years later than when it first came out. The setup is perfect for Hickman and Pitarra pick one of these stories and they do that one, right? Yeah. And then they bring in all of their friends. They bring in different writer, different artist, and you hand off all these different stories to other creators and say, hey, you got 4 issues, 32 pages an issue, go nuts. You guys collaborate on the story. Everyone's credited on story, but the script is a different writer. The artist is a different writer, and you set them off and you find a way to explore all of these different stories, bringing in different creators who can put their unique spin on it. And maybe, and that's the way a book list to be handled now that we've mentioned. Black Hammer has done this. I mentioned the Minor Threats book, Jordan Blum and Patton Oswalt, the Slaughterverse books over at Tiny Onion, the Something Is Killing the Children universe. Like this is kind of how those universes work now. Especially when they start branching out into this anthology style storytelling, where now we're just telling different pockets of the universe. That's how it would be done. And if this book ever came back, it's not too late to try and do that now with this still, even 10 years, 10 years on from when the final issue of this series came out.
Yeah, I agree. I think if it were going to happen by now, it would have happened, but
probably.
Because I don't think there's any more momentum with the stories that they left untold.
No.
And so you would basically be doing, you could do kind of what they did here. What I was wondering as I was reading this was like, I 100% believe they were dreaming about doing this for a while. I don't think it was an all along type thing. But I was reading, they still have the same pitch on the front cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, does this story still apply to that pitch, or are they just having fun in the sandbox they built? Either one's fine. I do think there were 2 things that caught my attention. One, the master race that has the slave race doing science for them. That guy talks about like how civilizations fall, which is ignorance, and it's a combination of ignorance and assurance or something. It's not assurance, it's something like that. But it was basically like, when you're really sure of yourself and you're ignorant, that's when your civilization falls. You expand too quickly, blah, 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 blah. basically that's
Arrogance,
why
was it that? Was it
arrogance?
was
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
is that what it was? Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like we're investing in science and we're humble students of it, so we're going to be fine forever. So I was like, okay, I see that a little bit, and then you get the actual scientists with their spores,
Mhm.
which like no matter how altruistic the scientists in the scientific division are, they always end up coming up with a weapon of genocide. Right. It's
Yeah.
like that is a universal across the galaxy
Yeah.
in this world of Manhattan projects.
Yeah, and I think from a narrative standpoint, again, I didn't really care about the Leica rescue and things like that, but I do agree on the themes of this book, because you're right, that master race of aliens that's going out and basically creating a library of galactic knowledge, whatever it is, I guess. But like what they're doing is like taking samples, aka people and organisms, and like holding them for study and research,
Yeah.
which isn't all that great. And so the idea, like, it does feel like this was a next level of commentary of like, this is what the extreme of the Manhattan projects would have done if you gave humanity maybe a few million more years with these people in charge. Maybe this is where we get to. And it's interesting that the main narrative thrust is like the quote unquote regular folk, the common folk, which in this case are the slaves. They call them the Greys, right? I guess, that's a very not so subtle kind of colorism there. But yeah, the idea that it is about their revolt or, destruction, bringing down that like technoarchy or whatever you want to call it, kind of thing. Given what they had shown in the main series of what was the drive of all of those scientists, specifically Oppenheimer, was essentially to take over the world, take over galaxies. This is what they wanted to do. And so to kind of see that there was a race maybe kind of already doing that, and to see them get taken down, I thought was an interesting commentary for the book.
Yeah, definitely an interesting commentary on the book. I think the thing that made me less interested in it is that we really only have two characters we're following from the original series. Mm-hmm. We don't really care about either of them, Leica, because of the dog thing, but that's really it. Leica's not done anything to endear us to her. And
I think it weirdly changes when she goes from being a dog to a humanoid dog.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the magic goo is like, okay, we're no longer in sci-fi with the magic goo. We're in like full fantasy. Magic. Yeah,
magic and fantasy. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're on the same page about that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, one thing to say, it speeds up evolution and now can walk upright and speak and things like that. It's like, okay.
Well, she could always speak. She could always talk. That's the thing. When she was dog form, but now they're not drawing like a dog. Yeah.
Enhanced intelligence, perhaps leveled up a little quickly and arbitrarily there, but it's one of those. So did you ever read the book, The Knife of Never Letting Go? It was like a teen dystopian novel. Amazingly.
Was that during the wave of the 2010s?
It was just late on that. It was like 2016 was the first one.
All right.
And it had what should have been the most amazing film adaptation ever, because Kaufman was doing the film, and it's a mind-bending thing. And Tom Holland was your male lead. And what's her name from Star Wars Force Awakens, who played Ren? Daisy
Ridley.
Daisy Ridley was the female lead. And it was just like, holy crap, how can this not be amazing? And the movie was called Chaos Walking. And basically they cast both of those actors before Spider-Man and Star Wars respectively, and then tried to shoot around Star Wars and Marvel for both of their leads. And
holy cow.
Eventually,
Tom Holland, Mads Mikkelsen, Cynthia Erivo.
Oh, Mads Mikkelsen,
David Oyelowo.
Yeah. It's just like, how could this not be good? Except literally no one was there to make it. And the studio just had to like dump it eventually. But anyway, the first book was really interesting, and the premise of the book is that it is a planet where there is a germ that infects the males of every species that makes all of their thoughts audible and visible. So like you have a little cloud floating above you that shows every mental image in your head, and everything you think comes out loud. And since this applies to animals too, it also applies to his dog. So like Tom Holland, I forget the main character's name, but the first page of the book is the dog talking, and it just says poo Todd. And if you read the author's note at the back of the book, he's like, there were two ideas going through my mind when I made this book. One is the effect of having smartphones in the hands of teenagers. Like that's what the whole chaos walking thing is a metaphor for. He said, and two, I always find it disturbing that in books, when dogs are given the ability to speak, they don't speak like dogs. They don't, they all of a sudden have human intellect just because they have speech. When he's like, I think this is what I wrote in my book is what I think a dog would actually sound like if given the ability to speak, which is like basic
with their level
of
sentience
things.
Yeah.
It's like there's not really a syntax to it. They're single-minded and they communicate like what they know.
Yeah.
So anyway, a very amusing comment from whatever that guy's name was.
It is one of the things I think we talked about that when we first were introduced to the Soviets and Star City and things like that. The idea that Laika is a fully human level sentient talking dog. That's one of the like major tropes specifically around her as a character in fiction. This idea that the animals we sent to space, like all of them can talk. Whether it's a dog, a monkey, whatever, they're all like have full human sentience. That is a common trope among sci-fi fantasy stories. That you see it just across stories like that. But yeah,
I think it's the dream of every dog owner is like, what if my dog could talk? And it's like, this guy who wrote Chaos Walking, he knows what your dog would say if it could talk. It's like food, poop, like let's go.
Anytime I think this is a book I think I've mentioned, I don't think I've mentioned it in a while, but I've mentioned it a ton over the years. One of my favorite books from Aftershock was called Animosity. And in that story, in a single moment, every animal creature on the planet was given the ability to speak and full human sentience, human level sentience. So it wasn't just the ability to speak; they were given the full ability to logic
like,
and read.
This is
and they said this is what happened. So it wasn't just all the animals could speak, and this is how they sound. It was they all gained human level sentience and intelligence. So they were able to hand wave that. So all of your characters, all the animals, can just talk as is, and that's like the whole premise of the book, or that's the setup of the book there. But I think it comes from that idea of all pet owners want to be able to speak to their pets. That is a fun book. But you're right, there is something about the idea of if you could actually talk to your cats, like what would they say? You know
what two of them would say.
Well, yeah, so that is true for most pet owners. It actually probably isn't that much of a mystery of what their dogs would say, and I think for Garen in here, the way he looks at like his dog, we'll get to the ending of the book, which I do think is pretty funny. But
it's such a funny last page.
It's great. But I do think, if Laika couldn't talk in this sense, you would definitely feel that. I mean, there was a part of this where this book would have been funnier if Laika couldn't talk. And then when she was sent out on this mission, and when Garrett finds her, she now can talk, Yeah. There's a different version of that if they had played that earlier, where she was just a dog, maybe a highly intelligent dog, but couldn't actually speak. And then after the transformation, she could now do that. But
Qui-Gon Jinn would point out to us that the ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Well, and that's a
famous line to Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. But I'm just saying she obviously she can operate. She can operate the spaceship, but she couldn't actually speak in human terms. But pet owners, you have a sense of how your pet is probably feeling, and you could probably guess what they would say. But yeah, the ability for an animal to talk like that, I think, is that for whatever reason, it it plays out specifically around the space race. And there is something about that. The one character that's like the floating blue blob here, they do kind of play that gag with that creature there when the one mouth is just saying blurg over and over again. It's a very I am Groot situation. And then all of a sudden, like the other mouth starts talking and it's just like full complete sentences. And it's like, yeah, of course I can talk, you know?
And you didn't bother to learn my language.
Yeah. Oh God, I just flashed on something. It's one of my favorite covers of the past some odd years. It was a Marvel cover. It was for I think it was for the Jean Grey miniseries that it followed the time displaced original X-Men when they were kids. They were brought forward. It doesn't worry, but it doesn't matter. It on the cover, it is Jean. She's got her hand to her temple because she's talking with Groot, and there is this huge word bubble of like Groot talking, being like, you know, Jean Grey, you're a human. I admire you as a human, blah, blah, blah. You do this stuff. And it's this huge text there kind of in the background. And then in the foreground, covering part of it, just says, I am Groot out loud. So the idea that Jean is reading all of Groot's thoughts, but what's heard is just "I am Groot." Stuff like that is great. I thought of that with this character here, whose name I can't really remember because again doesn't really matter much. We've got Lyco, we've got Garanon, we've got this floating blue thing, and we have this robot that lies all the time. Like and then this like judge character,
a compulsively lying robot is a funny.
Yes.
Felt a little like.
That felt a little slapsticky.
Senator Jeff Lemire.
That felt a little slapsticky there. This idea of a very bizarro thing, right?
Yeah,
you know, of like you have to learn. This creature, this being, follows a very specific rule, and you just have to learn how to talk to it in that way. You know, like if there's someone who always lies, and it did. I don't want to say it felt out of place, because there's a silliness and absurdist to this whole book there. But again, I think because from a character standpoint, I didn't care about this story. It was more just
my thing was they're having fun, let them cook.
Yeah. You know what? There is part of that. There definitely is. It was like that we're getting more. And again, the idea that I think I both give this book extra praise, and I also dock it extra points because I give it extra praise knowing like, yes, this was the blueprint, because if one of these doesn't hit, another one probably will for you, right? If you're in for the series, there's no guarantee that all of these miniseries would have been for you, because you're not going to like every character. You're not going to like every storyline. That's what an anthology gives you. It gives you that flexibility. And so I see this and I'm thinking, yes, this one didn't hit for me, but you know what? The next one probably would have. You know, at least, you know, or at least it might have. There's a chance to it, and I can look forward to that. And so I see that potential there. But the reality is the only one we got. And so it's almost like I downgrade it, like I dock it an extra point because it's like, well, because you're the only one here, there's nothing else to compare it to. And I feel that maybe is a little unfair to this book, because there is the spirit of it. You're right, is just like, it's wild and crazy stuff, man. You know, and the fact that this one is out in space, when they can just draw whatever they want, whatever kind of alien race, whatever kind of thing they can think up. Like there are no rules they have to even consider thinking about following with the book.
Yeah, I mean, your criteria is, unfair, quote unquote, yes. But also like, well, who gets to decide what's fair criteria? Yeah, and I think we've been.
But I recognize that.
I think we've been pretty loyal fans to this book.
Yeah.
To me, it's just like an aggressively mid 3-star story. I would have rather seen them open the anthology era by like kicking down the door. Like if I had been reading this in real time, I would never have guessed that's the last thing we get. It's like the only two characters we knew before these 4 issues dissolving into the sun.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to. The last.
Do you want to go into that?
Like,
Do you want to go into that?
I never really liked you.
Yeah. That idea of like, of him being like, hey, Garen is like, hey, we're here. We're cutting the gravity. We're here. We're at least we're together, right? And like, it's like, dude, I don't want to die. This sucks. And then I just never really liked Joe. And then into the sun, or a sun. which is,
I mean, what a brutal thing to leave someone with.
yeah, yeah. But
which is one of those things where
kind
I'm
of in
like,
character. Yeah.
It reminds me that like, oh, I only liked Leica, not because I knew anything about her, but because she's a cute dog, and
Yeah.
and she's a non-consenting, space pioneer.
Yeah.
So it's like you
yeah.
extend the extra bit of sympathy in that direction, but it's also like, well, if you're a jerk, you're a jerk,
Yeah. Well, and there might be a part of that idea we're talking about, like Garanon probably thinks of her like a pet, but she's also like, dude, I can talk and operate a spaceship, you know?
And yeah, I mean, the brains of the operation.
Yeah,
in this book.
And I think they go out of the way to be like, yes, they went to space, but like Garanon, he's a cosmonaut, not a genius, but he was the guy they picked. So, and the idea that maybe Leica was picked on skill and ability, like she was there. She was merit based,
Yeah.
when Garanon maybe wasn't.
Well, and I mean, my whole thing was like, he was the idiot through the entire main series.
Yeah.
He was just kind of like in the room, but like, should I be here?
At one point, I think he said, he's like, I'm a soldier. Like, I think during like one of the base attacks, it's like, I'm a soldier. Like, just you point me in a direction and I'll go. And I'm pretty good at that. But yeah, there's outside of that, nothing really special about him.
I think that level of self-awareness actually is somewhat special. Might be the most special thing about him.
It might be. Yeah. To know his utility.
Yeah, or lack thereof.
To be aware of his limitations, I guess.
Yeah. I think that makes me like him more. I don't know if that makes him a better character or better written or anything like that, but I'm like, you know what?
I agree with
like that. the because he's not like a Dunning-Kruger character, right? He doesn't think he's a genius.
Yes, he does know his place in this group of scientists, I guess, of geniuses or near geniuses in the Los Alamos projects. But he does feel that there's a level of renown that he has for being the first person. Like he feels he deserves some respect for the accomplishment he was part of, that he participated in, right? But he knows that it wasn't his genius that got him there.
Yeah, well, I did also love when he's like, I'm the only man that's ever been to space, and they're like, no, now other people have been in space. He's like, well, I'm the first.
And the first? Am I still the first?
Yeah. Like, first of all, if we can't change the chronology of things, like you were always the first. That should have been your claim.
But that's the thing, though, like him trying to hold on to that because he knows that's all he has.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have anything else. So
and with his IQ score not breaking the bank, he's nothing really else on the horizon for him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he kind of.
I mean, he's the guy who peaked in high school, right?
If that, yeah. I mean,
he got his great life achievement out of the way early, and then spends the rest of his life trying to find ways to bring that up in conversation.
Yeah. And he's surrounded by. He spends his adult life here surrounded by all the people in the Manhattan projects
by him. Yeah.
And then he finds himself in space surrounded by all these aliens.
Right. It's not like it's not like they're determinedly unimpressed by him.
Yeah.
Like, they actually know enough to be unimpressed by him.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they think about him or the way they think about him.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
They
think about him as like a drone, as a soldier, like that. This is what your use is. So in that way, it weirdly kind of makes sense. Like when he's like, I go after my dog. Like no one's going to be like, okay, fine, get in one of these rockets here, and we'll send you out there. It at the end of book 5, again, it made sense as the team was breaking up into their potential separate storylines. It made sense that this is where he would go. Because as we said, this was the one like actual dangling plot thread where like he had a mission to go do. It was just a matter of how much do any of us care about that specific mission. I don't know. I definitely think I'd feel different about this book if we had gotten at least one other of these anthology stories.
Yeah, I know.
Because it'd be something to compare it to, it'd be like, hey, we got a couple of these here. I wonder if some of that is just timing and delays, right? At some point you just like, we're running out of steam here.
I mean, you're running out of steam here, but I also think in order to motivate themselves to do it when they're so busy with other work,
Yeah.
they've got to do the one that was for them. Right.
Yeah.
And this one's clearly for them. Because it's basically like, I mean, this whole thing is basically like Star Wars fan fiction. You know, you kind of get dropped into like a cantina and you're in a smuggling war. And it's like, there's stuff going on above every pay grade. And that's just got to be a fun thing to write. And like, it wasn't enough story that you could go change the names and pitch this as like, it's going to be a 4-issue space epic smuggler thing, and the characters die at the end, right? No one's gonna print that.
Yeah,
but if it's part of a big universe, it's like, well, whatever, you know.
I was double checking though, because I wanted to see. I mean, like this book basically starts around the same time as East of West, the book that Hickman does with Nick Dragata, and East of West goes out to end of 2019. So he was doing East to West at this time, kind of concurrently with Manhattan Projects, kind of all the way through. So again, I'm sure it's a matter of time thing. I'm not going to go back and see exactly what he's doing at Marvel at this point. I know at some point around here, like he stopped working at Marvel for a while before he came back in 2019 for X-Men. I'm just trying to see like what was coming up. If it was just it could be a matter of sales, could be a matter of timing. I don't know, but it's just I'm left with just a small feeling of emptiness, of incompleteness, because it was clear. I
think
believe
more so than if this didn't exist, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I think that's really.
I have that note here. Absolutely, yes. If the book had come out. It is like going back to when we talked about Velvet, Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting, right?
Sure.
There's a note at the end there saying like this is the end of the first story, because that story wraps up those 3 volumes. That is a complete story. And then the idea is the story continues. It can go another direction. And they say in there they're working on it. They want to come back to it. A little time off, blah, blah, blah. As with a lot of things, never happened. If they had written that, if Hickman had written that letter at the end of 25 saying we want to go in a new direction, here's what it is, we're going to have these shorter focused stories, bigger issues, smaller runs, yada, 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 and then never got anything after that, you'd be like, oh man, that sucks. But hey, it happens, you kind of throw your hands up and be like, that's the industry. But the fact that we just got one of them, that does feel like an extra little gut punch.
Yeah. It's when they clearly had bigger ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I saw an interview, there's a lot of Matt Damon interviews popping up in my feed this week.
Sure. Yeah. And
someone was like digging into like his film history and saying like, talking about the Bourne franchise and like where that came from and the time it was released and yada, yada, yada. And Matt Damon was saying like, yeah, I think the directors were just like, we just don't connect with the Pierce Brosnan Bond at all, but we really miss having a Bond. So like, what if we pick up this book series and kind of make it the Bond we want it to be, like grounded and gritty and no gadgets. And, he's not driving Aston Martins. He's taking like little crappy European cars through alleyways and stuff like that. And it was like, what a great idea, because there's always that itch. And I think, Brubaker and Epting were like, for 20 years now, people have been saying like, what if there was a female James Bond? And it's like, the Fleming state is not going to go for that in film, but we'll do that.
Yeah. Well,
And we don't have to pay anyone if we just don't name them Bond.
And I think about it all the time with something like that, because there was a moment there when a lot of people wanted someone like Gillian Anderson to play.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I don't want her as James Bond, but she's at that time, it was like, she's the exact right age range to play Velvet Templeton, but that idea of going into that story and finding something there, you're right, kind of spinning it on its head a little and telling a story. But yeah, it still remains unfinished though. And that's just one of those things of, now that I'm really thinking about it, I would feel much different about this series as a total, as a whole, if it just ended at 25 with the idea of all of their future plans being unrealized.
I know.
None of them coming to fruition versus just one. Yeah, now, yeah, I'm now that I'm really sitting
like,
with
just to keep the metaphor going unnecessarily, it would be like if Morning Glories came back and instead of picking up where it left off, it was like, hey, check this out. We're going to do a 4-issue miniseries on one of the professors at the school.
that. Yeah,
And like show you what goes on in the classroom there.
Yeah. But this is one of 5 miniseries we're going to do.
Right. But like we're going to show you a whole semester from different vantage points.
Yeah.
As we also prepare to unfold the next part of the story. And instead you just get like an elective, shopkeeping class or something. And it's just really? You like went back into the world of this school for this?
Yeah. You know what?
I'm like, I obviously Oppenheimer's off the table now, but I would have liked an Einstein cameo appearance, especially since he's like galaxy / multiverse hopping now.
Multiverse hopping. Yeah. I was, as we're talking about, hey, what if they came back to this book now? Was there, what kind of juice would it have? I think at this point, if Hickman and Pitarra ever came back to this book, I actually don't think they could come back in the way that they left it of like these miniseries. They would have to come back. It would have to come back as the Manhattan Projects : something, but it'd have to be at least semi-regular ongoing series. It'd have to be a new number 1 and it'd have to run for, I would say, at least 12 or 15 issues. I don't think you can just be like, hey, we're coming back and it's just a bunch of miniseries and stuff that we were going to get to before. I don't know if that would work. But if you said, hey, it's a new series, it's a new Hickman number 1, I'm back with Nick Pitarra, we're coming back to this world, and they can tell the stuff of like, you don't have to have read all the other stuff. We'll jump in with new readers, which is probably would have been a lie. But I think they'd have to come back with like, this is a new ongoing, or it's a new maxi series. It's not just, here's 4-issue miniseries. Here's one 12-issue run. I think that's the only way they could work. Only way where it would be like have any commercial viability, because then you can tout, here's a new ongoing series or limited maxi series from this returning team that you guys know from back in the day. That's an easier sell than here's the first of 4 miniseries that are all connected, but kind of not really, like that. I think that's a harder sell.
And I have been burnt personally of like going into a comic shop, picking up a book because I'm like, oh, that looked kind of interesting. And I know that author, and I get home and I sit down with it and I'm like, come on, Dark Horse. Like you put a number 1 on it, which to me implied an entry point. Specifically, I'm thinking of the 2018 book by Matt Kent, who I loved in 2018, Ether, the Copper Golems.
Ether, yep.
Ether, the Copper Gothams, number 1. And I picked that up and took it home, and I was like, what in the world is going on? And then I Googled it, and it turns out it was a follow-up series.
Is that book 3 or book 2?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Like, I never went back. I was so frustrated with the convention of it, the mere concept of it, like having a number 1 and not really being an entry point. Because again, when I came into comics, it was like
that was book 2.
It was like DC was doing, a new 52, and the number 1s were genuinely entry points for the characters. Then shortly after they did Rebirth, again, they all got one-shot introductions that sets you up for the character and the story that was coming, and then a number 1. And, there was Marvel Now in 2014, and those were number 1s. And generally speaking, with indie comics, other than Dark Horse, they're not doing a bunch of number 1, like something. But once I learned that was a Dark Horse convention, I was like, oh, I see. Because our comic shop owner was whining to me about Black Hammer, because I asked him to pull everything Black Hammer, and this is before they used Comic Hub. And he was like, ugh, Dark Horse. He's like, now I have to look for the word Black Hammer in every title there, because it might not be like the first 2 words. It might be, something from the world of Black Hammer. He's like, and it's so annoying for me to pull that for you. And I was like, well, it feels like you're taking your frustration out on me when it belongs literally anywhere else. Like you can get mad at the solicits, you can get mad at your organizational system, you can get mad at Dark Horse, you can get mad at the creators, but I'm the one just standing here with money ready to give you. So please don't take it out on me. End of rant about Dark Horse and numbering conventions. But like, it was a good reminder to me, like when I encountered this, like, oh, I guess anyone has the freedom to do that in an indie creator-owned house. It's just like Dark Horse seems to be the more niche place for it.
Well, but also like I don't think that's a Dark Horse directive. Like that is
right. Yeah. I don't know how it came to be that so many of their titles have spin-off like miniseries, but it does seem to be a pattern.
Well, I think they have been they probably have found that shorter runs of things sell better. Like
I suspect that's true.
Than 25 issues of something versus here's 12 issues and then here's another four. But yeah, like so that also comes down. It comes down to the creators because they own the IP. So like that's Lemire doing that, wanting to tell these different stories in a different way. The Minor Threats universe is the same way. It's from the world of Minor Threats, whatever Barfly. They've been probably 4 or 5 of those books that are like that, and it's just how they choose to kind of put their books out. Different series usually have different subtitles. I mean, the Umbrella Academy is that way. Also Dark Horse, each one of those is 6 issues. But yeah, the trades are still numbered 1, 2, 3 though. I don't think specifically Ether is done that way. I think Ether is just
anyway. Okay, so takeaway though, if you're recommending this series to someone, do you just tell them to stop at 25, or do you just say, it leads to a little bit of a flat ending, but you go ahead and read it all?
I would tell someone to read it all because I'm a completionist like that.
Me too.
It's like it's out there. Read it. You can decide, what worth you derive from that.
I realized pretty quickly in this volume that these guys are just having fun, and that's how I should read it. I should not read this as something that's going to profoundly change the series that I read and was invested in. But like they're having fun, and if you picture yourself as someone, sitting in the cafeteria at Image, like listening to these guys talk about their crazy ideas at lunch, you would have a blast hearing this book pitched, right? It's like,
oh yeah,
it is objectively wild and fun and goofy.
Oh yeah.
It's just only in the context of like having been on this massive journey. There's only 25 issues, but still covered so much ground, did so many wild and crazy things. And to have like kind of a quirky offbeat story here at the end, it's like, okay.
As like fine. A coda kind of thing. Yeah. Well, as what's now serves as a coda because it's the last story.
Yeah, right.
It feels like a weird button.
A coda.
Yeah, it feels like a weird button at the end. But yeah, I think you're right. I bet when they brought this pitch in, like it kills. Because you're like, that sounds so ridiculous and funny. You can take that in so many ways. And I think Hickman and Pitarra really did take it in almost every direction you could have taken it. At no point could they have gone too far or been too silly. And I do think because this is the end of the story, you're right. They took this one further than anywhere they could have gone. Now, maybe they could have done it a little more with some of the multiverse hopping that the Einsteins and Fenman were going to. So there's a possibility they could have done that, but we never got there. So with this being all we have of it, it was clearly like, hey, man, do you want to draw some crazy aliens? And I'm sure the answer was, yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's do that.
That's a great pitch. I mean,
yeah.
Which artist, especially after being on a pretty successful series for 25 issues, is going to turn that down?
Yeah.
Especially with the ever increasing in popularity, Jonathan Hickman.
Well, and it's their book. So like, hey, what do you want to draw? If he was like, I want to draw a bunch of crazy aliens, okay, let's tell our next story in space. Cool, let's do it. Done. 4 issues. Sure, it takes them 11 months to get them all out there, but they got it done. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's kind of how the conversation went, and how we ended up with this story as being the first one out of the gate, as the one that they wanted to jump into right after the main series concluded. Again, I will never think about this book though and not think of just wish we could have gotten more. Wish we could have gotten more of these follow-ups, just to kind of put a bow on all of them. That would have been really nice.
I totally agree. But the 25 issues I will return to. Yeah. And I have a feeling, especially since I have them bound all together and you don't have to get off the couch, that if I go through the first 25 again, I'll probably tag these ones on.
Yeah, because you have them there.
Well, the ending is so it's so dark but funny. And I think that's, in a sense, the last 3 pages of this capture the entire series.
I think that's very fair. I agree.
It's
I think
high
that's
sci-fi.
Very fair.
It's wild. It's dark, and it's funny. Yeah. And no one else could do this combination of things and not have it that was in no way a depressing ending, even though the 2 characters died and both of them unhappy. One of them saying, "Well, at least I'm with you, my old friend," and the other one's like, "I don't even like you." They don't want to die, and I don't like you.
There is something fitting about this whole comic wrapping up in that way versus what was the ending of 25, which was, and they all have other adventures, because we had spent 25 issues to see what those adventures typically are. And those adventures aren't good things. So all these adventures going off probably don't lead to good ends. So the idea that after 25 issues, there's a level of optimism of we're going to keep exploring. We're not part of the Manhattan Project anymore, but we're still out there exploring. That's a weirdly and kind of unfittingly optimistic end of the book. So you are right. If you frame the end of this story as the end of the whole thing, of a little bit of a nihilism at the end there, that really does work. And I do really like that, even if kind of the journey of those 4 issues wasn't my favorite. I do like that as a true button to the whole exercise. Yeah.
I mean, I have no more else to say about it other than I had fun, and I don't want this to be the ending, but I do thank them for making at least this.
I agree. I think this is we said it over and over again.
I'm quabbling over the order, right? Had this come out as an interstitial between 5 and 6, and you introduce the interstitial idea before ending the main series, but then it turns out the end of the main series was actually the end. They never got to more interstitials. Mm-hmm. I think I'd be more forgiving.
I would agree.
The fact that it was we stopped, promised you something, took a break, took our
gave you the first
time
part of the promise,
rolling out the first part of the promise, and then just went cold turkey.
Yeah, I and again, I think that goes back to some of
I did not see a letter in the back of Sun Beyond the Stars, number 4.
I don't think
there was no promise of hey, this was fun. I'm pretty busy right now.
Yeah.
But it's still on my mind, still in my heart. I'm gonna get to it.
Don't know.
There, I did it.
Don't know. And like I said, there are so many factors that go into when a book continues and it doesn't. So obviously we don't want to project onto there. But I think I agree with your overall assessment that it wasn't the content of the issues or the story they told. It was the unfortunate timing of when they came out and what came after, which was obviously nothing. That it's hard to reframe these issues as anything other than a bit of a letdown because we were promised more. You're right. If they come at a different time and then are collected later, you feel differently about them. So again, it's a little unfair, but I feel the fact that I'm self-aware that I'm being unfair about it makes it a little more fair.
Well, that and I guess my question is part of my reframing it to enjoy it more than I actually did is let's say I got to go to C2E2 or something and Jonathan Hickman were there and I took him my whole homemade omnibus and was will you sign this massive book that I hold all the way here? And he said, what did you think about Sun Beyond the Stars? Like, I'm not going to be like, it was absolute crap compared to the main series. I can't believe you ended like that. I'm like, here's what I liked about it. I mean, that's it's not just like, in the off chance of that, that's how I try to interpret everything. It's like, I try to interpret any work of, literature, comics, movies, music, whatever, as if the artist will hear the things I'm saying and acknowledging that artist is a person.
Yeah.
And I wish more people were critical in that way, because it actually, like, I don't think of myself as an optimist because I have to work really hard to get to that place. It's actually a pretty intellectual challenge to say, like, I'm going to adapt this level of empathy, acknowledge that this person was a human and they did a nice job. And again, like, now I'm making it sound like the book was terrible and I'm really covering over for it. It wasn't. It's a fine book.
Yeah. But I also don't think it'd be out of line to be like, you know what, I enjoyed it, but like, I really wish we could have gotten those other books. And that would then probably lead to a spark. And I had a similar conversation about this recently at a show with Becky Cloonan about the book Southern Cross. Book Southern Cross has I think it has 12 issues. It's got 2 volumes worth, and then they put 2 more issues out, and it just stopped. They never can get back to it. And I talked to her about that, and I was like, is there any word? And she was like, I don't know. We would love to someday, but life, work, things, blah, blah, blah. And so you can talk to them sometimes about, we wanted to get back to it. We've talked about it, and I'm sure if you talk to Hickman or Pitarra, if they'd be like, maybe like every 6 months, it's like, hey, what about this? You think we're gonna go back to that? I don't know, maybe, so it's one of those things that you can still spark conversation, even if it's not like, this is my favorite thing in the world, or anything about that. Most artists, most creators I found are pretty receptive to that, because like, hey, I read it, I engaged with it. I would love if you came back to it, not just because I want more of it, but also because you kind of said you wanted to do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of when I talked to Ann Nocenti about the seeds.
Yeah.
I was like, I really loved what we got. Is this really how you wanted the book to go?
Yeah.
And she was kind of like, well, of course not. I printed 2 issues and then COVID, and then
COVID
it all
hit.
ended up it's just shoved into a trade. And I was like, well, yeah, that's a good point. So it's like, well, perhaps it would have been 6 or 8 issues, which I think is what that book needed to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's just
versus
covered a lot of ground. It was like,
material.
Is this following the journalist? Is this following the alien? Is this following the, the other person? It's just like, it was building a sizable ensemble for a 4-issue series.
Well, and that's what we say, that there's so many outside factors as to what causes a book to go on, get cut short, stop, things like that. So yeah, you can't ever, I don't believe you can ever fully hold that against a book for ending how it is, especially someone like this, the Manhattan Projects, that obviously had in total 29 issues, which is pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. Great. 29 issues overall. So I think you can acknowledge that and also be like, could have taken a few more, only because they said they wanted to do it. But again,
it's like, I'm not manipulating you. I'm not being a toxic fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Telling you how to spend your career.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, I read, like, hey, man, I read, not only did I read your book, I read your letters.
Yeah.
And your letters said you wanted this.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, it isn't like going to Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang and being like, I love Pittsburgh Girls, I want more of this. We're like, no, man, that story ended at 30. That story is done. You wanting more, that is actually doesn't, that's just being like, hey, I want more of this.
I mean, here's the perfect comp. Like, we just straight up told Joe Henderson to his face, like,
that's true.
Where's the rest of Shadecraft? Like,
it's true.
Where is it? Like, it just got off the ground, and it was like, let's go. Like, you built the world, you inhabited the world. He did conclude the origin story like the original arc. Yeah, but it's just like, who wants to stop after the origin story?
Exactly. And so,
in fact, most artists nowadays get praised for skipping the origin story.
Yeah, drop you kind of in media res. So yeah, there's always that there's a thin line there of like wanting more of a story, but then also understanding as to why you did or did not get more of that, and does it make sense? And I think for this book, because they said they had planned for it, I don't think it's out of line to be like, man, I really wish you had. I don't think it's totally out of line to use that framework. It's one thing to say you want to do more and never get to it. This is a case where not only they said they wanted to do more, they told you what the blueprint was.
I know.
They said specifically how they want. So I don't think it's way out of bounds to
I think the extra kicker for me is that way. They didn't even have to do it themselves. Like they had established the thing. They'd lived in the thing. They could have hired anyone. Anyone would have been happy to write an arc on this book.
10 years ago, that was, I think, less of a norm for a book like this. Yeah. Now, if this book comes out, yes. And so that is an issue of just the way the industry works and
the market,
and the timing and how the market works. Yeah. And that is just, that's not something they would have, I don't think that's something they probably would have considered 10 years ago, but it's definitely something you probably would consider now. So that's just an unfortunate timing. And that's just, hey, that's how it goes sometimes. And it sucks. But hey, what you do get out of this book is a really fun, crazy, absurd, wacky ride. And that part, I think, is when I go back and revisit that, I think this will definitely be one where I will probably spend a little more time with Pitarra's art and Jordi Bellaro's color.
Yeah.
And because again, the science, the dialogue, it's ridiculous and absurd and it's crazy. I think I'll live in some of those moments. I'll probably go back to the Oppenheimer stories, the Ryan Brown issues, and really look at those and really study and take a look at all of the Oppenheimer variants, So I think when I revisit this book, it will be for some of those crazier, sillier moments. And
those Oppenheimer stories, like the first time through, you're just trying to like get your bearing, get through it, figure out what the narrative thread to hold on to.
Why are we seeing this? Yeah.
It's like walking through quicksand and your feet have found a rail underneath and you're like, okay, just follow the rail, get through the quicksand, even though there's things pulling my attention in a million different directions right now.
Yeah. I think that helps on a reread. I think that helps on a reread to just, you can let what you can let wash over you. So
the fact that we've both declared our intent to reread it, I think is the highest praise.
That's true.
Give it, right?
That's really fair.
It's just like, what else can you say about it other than like, oh, I had my nits to pick about, both how it ended, but also the fact that it ended.
It's true.
It's like, clearly I'm not bashing it. If I'm just saying like, my only complaint is that you stopped working on it.
Yeah. There are, I think you'd agree with this. There are some books you want to reread. There are some books you want to go back and just focus on the artwork. And I think a book like this is somewhere in the middle where I just want to go back and experience like the vibes again.
Yes.
Because it is knowing where the story goes and having that full picture there. I think you can just kind of sit in some of like the really funnier moments and how weird this book is and how far they take things without having to worry about like, what is this character doing? What's their motivation? Like the Oppenheimer thing, like what's happening? Is this in his head? What is this? Who are this? None of that really matters. You can sit once you've gone through it once, you can go back to it and just sit in the feeling of it and the experience of it. We haven't covered a lot of books like that. I think there are a lot of books I think from a technical level I really, really like and go back to on that. I think this is a bit more of a vibes book because the concept is so great. They said the pitch is perfect.
The vibes, the
execution is so out there.
Yes, I think the vibe comps for me, the two closest books we've done in terms of how I feel at the end of them would be Manifest Destiny, which is very recent, and Letter 44, which still feels pretty recent, but it was probably 2 years ago. I think the vibe of this and Letter 44, art style similar, came out around the same time, and also that one couldn't have ever opened up to an anthology because the way they ended it. Yeah. But what could have opened to an anthology would be Ex Machina. and that
Yeah.
Ex Machina, what I was thinking was 2 years ago. That's another vibe count for me.
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree on those two. That Ex Machina, I reread that book because I love BKV stuff. But I would definitely agree on those two. In terms of
like some of the issue stuff is pretty interesting in Ex Machina, but like the vibes of the book are what I resonate with, like ever after. Whereas like Paper Girls, I want everything. I want the art, and I want the Matt Wilson colors, and I want every piece of dialogue, every abrasive thing Max says, and I want to translate all the alien garbage.
You want those characters.
Yeah, I want all of it.
Yeah. But yeah, there, and maybe there's something about the space supernatural alien stuff there that you like. You can turn your brain off a little bit and enjoy this book, meet this book at the level that it's at, and you can find something that's really enjoyable about it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think this book actually does. I think it pairs specifically well with Manifest Destiny. There is the historical concept, the alt history bit of it. I think there's something weirdly tangential about those books that I like about both of them. And I think you're right. I think I enjoy both those books in the same way.
Yeah, that's well said. I'm excited to see where we go after this, because we've had a weird unintentional historical fiction bent this year.
We really have. Yeah. We really have.
Which I like. Historical fiction is not a favorite genre of mine. Like, I don't dislike it, but I don't seek it out.
Neither do I.
And the greatest historical fiction that I'm aware of is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, the novel. Yes. I don't know if you ever read that, but I read it or watched the BBC series.
I have not watched it yet.
Quite good.
I read that book for the first time late last year. Finally,
it had BBC budget, but it was still really good. Like the actors for Strange and Norrell were perfect. It was like everything else I can forgive.
Yeah,
but like if you got the essence right, and when he makes a bunch of horses out of sand, like the CGI isn't great, but you still get the thrill of the moment, especially if you were like the book reader nerd. But anyway, if anyone has not read that, amazingly, Susanna Clark's first novel ever. It's a tome, and it reads like Jane Austen, but it's set during the Napoleonic Wars with English magicians. It's phenomenal.
I mean, I love that book. We're talking about historical fiction. I mean, give me Cavalier and Clay. I mean,
oh yeah. Well, I mean that one. Okay, but that one is like, we didn't want to write a straight biography, but this is pretty seriously based on a couple real people.
Well, yes, but like
they fictionalized history rather than like taking a historical setting and doing a totally fictionalized story.
Well, no, but they didn't fictionalize history because the escapists, like those characters exist alongside Timely and DC, like Marvel.
Right, yeah. That's
so
true.
Like they didn't replace Captain America.
Nazi. Why can't the escapists do?
Yeah,
blah, 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 blah.
So
I remember that.
Adds on to history. Yeah. So
that and the fact that then it crept into sequential art storytelling, out of a Pulitzer Prize winning book. It's just very cool, very, very, very cool concept.
But I don't think we'll go historical fiction for our next book. We haven't decided what it is yet. But
I mean, we've always
who knows?
An ever-growing list. Yet, the longer we go and the longer the to-do list gets, the harder it is to decide.
That is true.
So anyway, we will keep you posted, and to find out, just tune in next Thursday for another intro episode. And as always, find us in all the places. Thank you for listening. I never say this, but give us a 5-star review. Have you ever noticed how weird it is that people say at the end of their podcasts that you can find us on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere? I'm like, I'm already listening for an hour and a half. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, who is this for?
I know.
It's the Jim Carrey meme. Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
From Truman Show. Anyway,
but since you're here already listening, give us a 5-star review.
Yeah, and if you didn't know that we were available on other apps, entertain yourself by finding us on all of the apps. But anyway, StoredArcs.com, Blue Sky, Instagram. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Peace.